Umagonja kutanda umagoya nkasa mna umagonja kutanda mna
It is Nati coming through with Amagama, and that is how we kick off the show today. And this one taken from his album Umbulelo, Umbulelo Wam, which was released back in 2016. Been relatively quiet in the last year or two. I think he had a single that was out end of 2023, if I'm not mistaken. But I don't, memory serves correct, it didn't lead to a full-blown album. That is how we kick off the show today. I hope you are having a great afternoon and everything is moving along swimmingly in accordance to your plans for the day. On our agenda today, we are going to be in conversation with equally fabulous thespians in their own right, artistic director at the Market Theatre, James Ngobo, and of course, director and playwright Janice Hanneman are going to be joining us in the first half of the show as we reflect back on the life, the work, and the contribution of an incredible playwright, an incredible son of South Africa. Of course, you know that yesterday we did also remind that the phenomenal South African playwright Athol Fugard had passed on Sunday. We all received the breaking news of his passing on Sunday. He died at the age of 92 after having led a full, robust, and interesting life. And we thought it's only but befitting that, we give some time to have some conversations and reflections about his life, about his work, and his legacy within the context of South Africa. And so we're going to do that today with two individuals that are well placed to be able to have that conversation in James Ngombo and Janice Hanneman. We also are going to be unpacking a little bit in terms of the GNU, the Government of National Unity, and their investment in young children, and of course that being a non-negotiable with the right to ECD coordinator. And this is ahead of that budget speech that must happen tomorrow in order for there to be enough lead time for all the necessary parliamentary processes that need to happen by way of debates and feedback and everything else in order to pass that budget for the 2025-2026 fiscal. And so there's still a lot up on the agenda, a lot of themes coming through because of that delay that happened a few weeks ago. And so we thought we'd have this conversation with the direct stakeholders of some of the budget outcomes and budget policies by way of tapping into the right of ECDs. It is Tuesday, so on the other side of 2 o'clock, we bring you health and wellness, and we are going to have a conversation focused on that. On the other side of 2, I'll let you know what is on the agenda for this afternoon closer to the time. 061-410-4107 is our WhatsApp line, and 086-000-2032 is the number that you can call us on if you would like to have some reflections on the work and the legacy of Athol Fugard. You're more than welcome to send through those voice notes on 061-410-4107. Let's take a quick pause.
You are listening to The Full Circle.
Specsavers now looks after your hearing as well as your vision with Specsavers Audiology. With 60 stores and counting, we are South Africa's largest audiology group. For a limited time only, buy one rechargeable hearing aid and get 50% off the second. You heard right. Buy one rechargeable hearing aid and get 50% off the second. Find your nearest store at specsavers.co.za. Specsavers Audiology. Test your hearing and join the conversation. T's and C's apply.
Copperbelt ladies and Durban ladies both want to collect maximum points in the early days of the season. Who will dominate this 90 minutes? Limpopo or KZN? This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Catch Mzansi Queens of the beautiful game. Copperbelt ladies versus Durban ladies on Saturday 15 March at 11:30 a.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
I'm sure it was an interesting time to be alive and to be in practice at the height of apartheid. Being a white male born of an Afrikaner mother, a creative, a writer, playwright, an actor in his own right, and ultimately getting to a point in his life where he felt it necessary to start challenging the status quo, felt it necessary to antagonize the apartheid regime at the time. And of course, I talk about none other than the great Athol Fugard, who was a renowned South African playwright and thespian, and really went on through the span of his 70-year career to write more than 30 plays and making his mark with The Blood Knot back in 1961. I mean, his story reads like a story of an incredible giant who just managed to do the unthinkable at times when it should not have even been a thought in his mind. We are joined by James Ngobo, who's the artistic director at the Market Theatre, and Janice Hanneman, who is a director and playwright. Both of them, quite respected within their own right. And we're here to honor the life and times of Athol Fugard. And maybe let me start with you, James. We appreciate the time with you this afternoon. And let's start firstly by perhaps reflecting on this incredible giant of theatre.
And thank you so much, Bridget. Hello, Janice.
How are you?
I'm good. Yes, I'm good. You know, Bridget, when you mentioned Blood Knot and just the genius of Athol Fugard, in Blood Knot there are two characters, Morris and Zachariah. And Zachariah, every time he leaves in the morning, he goes to work somewhere. And at some point in the play, you discover that he works in an area where he looks after white kids that come and play. And years later, Athol Fugard creates a play for Sean Taylor and Owen Sijaga called Playland. That when you read the two plays, it's almost like years later he went back to the world that Zachariah worked at and blew it up and created another piece. And so for me, what he has done brilliantly, he has hoisted the flag of this country, which is one, and two, an American playwright called Neil Simon who wrote plays like Lost in Yonkers and Brighton Beach Memoirs. What Fugard has done for Port Elizabeth as a city on the east coast of this country, he has through PE, which then is obviously his big news in his work. He uses PE as a portal to the world to introduce South African narrative to the world. The degradation of a people that was happening in this country, and at that time, Fugard was able to craft it so brilliantly that each of his pieces, when you watched it, you were not in a space where you are sitting through a seminar about this country. He just had an amazing knack to create biographies in a play and put them in a very challenging environment, and then create a collision of these people and the desperate needs that they have as individuals. And it's that for me is what who Fugard is, who has inspired playwrights not only in this country but all over the world. And one more thing to say is the first play I saw of Fugard was his autobiographical work, which is Master Harold and the Boys. I must have been 20 years old, and it was directed by a guy called Murray McKibben at the Playhouse. I walked out of the play completely blown out of my mind.
Yeah.
To see a scene with a black waiter sitting with this young white boy dissecting Shakespeare and talking about his father and talking and he created Sam and Willie and this character called Willie. At that time in South Africa, his biggest dream was to go to a competition, a dance competition, and he had chosen a girl who could not lend the foxtrot. He could make you laugh. He could leave you in wonderment. He could make you very, very angry. I mean, there was a line in the play where the character of Willie says, "Now she's telling me that the child is mine. How do I know it's my child? Only the hair looks like mine." That's.
James, I want to quickly just patch you through to my producer for a second. Whilst we do that, let's also welcome Janice Honeyman, who's a director and playwright. Janice, I want, from your perspective, the legacy that Fugard leaves behind, both in theatre and for thespians, but also for broader South Africans through his work, and how he chose to live his life.
Hello, Bridget. Nice to meet you on air. I believe that Ethel has been the spearhead and the most important playwright in our country, and he has set examples, and he has taught us in an amazingly accurate, deep, and perceptive way of looking at South African life, of defining what it is to be South African, of defining what it is to live in a South African situation from many, many aspects. It involves so much moral quicksand being South African, continually having to question yourself, having to question your attitudes, your honesty, and Ethel does that all the time in his writing. And that is why it is challenging to read a Fugard, while it is absolutely personal. So yes, they're human stories. Yes, they're personal stories. Yes, you can understand what Ethel is, who Ethel was in touch with, and yet you can relate and recognize and identify the characters in your own life, because he has a universal touch, and he has a touch that is he really understands people. So he opens doors for us to really see ourselves, and he shows his own biography and autobiography in a way that we can all relate to. And all the plays of his that I've done have been plays that are in some way autobiographical of Ethel, and have taught me about him as a person.
Yeah. The interesting thing, Janet, is that some folks say that Ethel's life contained urgent lessons for us all, in the sense that, it taught us how to resist a regime whilst still remaining committed, really, to the country that one loves. Perhaps still a very necessary reminder in our current political climate?
Absolutely. I mean, all of us, all of us who are working here now have chosen to stay, have chosen to be here. And Athol chose to stay. He did go and live in America for a long time, but he actually continued to write South African work. Something like Exits and Entrances, which I did, something like Boykie and the Obas, a Karoo story, the Blue Iris. They're all set in South Africa, and they're all confronting South African issues all the way. So Athol never really left. He just continued to look at the South Africanness of our lives and of his life, and stayed committed to it. And I think that's a lesson we can all learn from Athol.
Absolutely. James, I know we've got you back on the line. So last year, Athol did a last appearance at the Society of Authors, in which part of his speech and his talk ended off with the words, "Anger is a withering emotion. It's better to write out love." Do you think that this will still continue to be the guiding compass of his legacy for young playwrights as they now reflect the stories of South Africa in this current time?
Yeah, I mean, like Janice was saying about the authenticity that was very evident in his writing, and a sense that you also, when you read or watch his plays, you are confronted by a playwright that had an obsession with humanity. And Fugard also, there is something very clear in his writing, his love of actors. He wrote such palatable text that as an actor, all you had to do was just to spew his words with clarity behind it. So his characters for me are just like, Road to Mecca. People are living there. That thing Genesis directed. Busman and Lena, these two strand lopers, it's a complete love story. When you read that piece, pieces like Nongogo, and he was able to just take you through a plethora of all these people that live in this country, that are navigating being part of South Africa with all its intricacies that we were dealing with at that time. And I think he has really left the emerging young playwrights in this country with an idea that to write a play is not a delusional thing that you wake up one day and think, I want to do something, because the honesty in his works. I mean, we could sit here forever and talk about lines that we know from his plays, situations that we know from his plays, that emanate from him interacting with South African life. He made faceless little people. He took them and put them on a pedestal. And so that is why the idea that to walk away from anger, it's beautiful that he mentioned that, and we brought him at the market a couple years ago to do a piece called "In the Shadow of a Hummingbird," and we got an actor, one of our fine actors, Lionel Newton, to interview him. And Fugard spoke about his life, his writing, and the books that he read, and the inspirations that have come his way. And Lionel, towards the end, he says to him, "What is one thing that you will say is just the most beautiful thing that has happened?" And spoken like a playwright, Fugard said, was to teach a young American boy to call me Pa.
Let's pause it there for a second as we get ready for the headline news. We're going to take a quick break, but our WhatsApps are open on 061-410-4107 as we continue to remember Athol Fugard as we get into the headline news. We'll be back on the other side.
This Human Rights Month, SAFM is deepening a culture of social justice and human rights. It's a time to reflect, engage, and take action for a more just society. From thought-provoking discussions to powerful stories, SAFM is leading the conversations that move us. Because your voice matters, your rights matter, and together we shape a better future. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Thank you, Bridget. In the news headlines, the Road Traffic Management Corporation has confirmed that 16 people have now been declared dead following bus crash on the R21 near the OR Tambo International Airport. The EFF has warned that the implementation of e-voting is premature and detrimental to the electoral system. This comes as the Electoral Commission hosts a public conversation about the possibility of electronic voting at an e-voting conference in Cape Town today. And Uganda has deployed special forces to South Sudan's capital, Juba, amid rising tensions between President Salva Kiir and his deputy, Riek Machar. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
Very, very passionately. A lot of my friends who felt the same way that I did about apartheid and what their white government was doing had resorted to violence as a response. They had made bombs and tried to explode them. A lot of them had been caught. One of them had been sentenced to death. Many of them had gone into exile and were plotting outside of South Africa. I was still inside the country. And I was forced to ask myself, shouldn't I also actually, instead of sitting at my desk, putting words on paper, shouldn't I also actively commit myself to violent action? That, the play, My Children, My Africa, is actually about my internal debate in terms of this very issue, at the end of which I found myself believing, and it is a belief, an act of faith that has stayed with me to this day, that putting words on paper is a valid form of action.
Athol Fugard is a stalwart, is a catalyst. We're talking here about a white counterpart who never excluded blacks in his work. During the hardcore times of apartheid and oppression and the hate, he stood out. Remember, the likes of Ziximda, where the likes of Kani, were rejected, but he never rejected them. And I had just started reading Nothing But the Truth. John Kani, how we talk about Athol, he'll tell you that he's the founder of protest poetry, in which he initiated them to be part. I remember Tsotsi, the novel that was turned to a movie. He also wrote that book. May the stalwart rest in peace. He has established and unlocked every secret we need in theater for our duties to carry on the struggle and prosper in the name of Athol. Mastermind right here with Benke Malahleni Akaville.
Remembering Athol Fugard, South African playwriting and theatre legend Athol Fugard, born 11 June 1932. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
My name is Leon Pretorius and I am the CEO of the Naledi Theatre Awards. It is with great sadness that we learned of the passing of Athol Fugard yesterday. Athol will always be remembered as one of the greatest South African playwrights ever. And with his various works such as Busman and Lena, Master Harold and the Boys, The Island, Sizwe Banzi is Dead, My Children, My Africa, The Blood Knot, The Road to Mecca, and many others, he has most certainly made a lasting impression on the South African theatrical landscape. We will also remember 2020 very fondly when Athol was bestowed with a Naledi World Impact Award, which he received so gracefully. Our deepest condolences goes out to Paula and his children, as well as all of his family and loved ones.
And that was Lehan Pretorius, who is the CEO of the Naledi Theatre Awards, just honouring the life and times and legacy of Athol Fugard. Back in 2010, I think it was, he did an interview on BBC where he said that he shared the view of the late Archbishop Desmond Tutu, and that was Athol Fugard, of course, who said this. And he said that we have lost our way as a nation, and I think the present society in South Africa needs the vigilance of writers every bit as much as the old one did. It is a responsibility that young writers, playwrights must really wake up to and understand that responsibility is theirs, just as it was mine and a host of other writers in the earlier years. As we wrap up the conversation today, perhaps in about 30 seconds and less, James, your hope for the theatre community, your hope for South Africans, as we sort of now find ourselves in this other chapter where Athol in his presence is not here anymore as a guiding forefather, but is here in the presence of his work.
Well, my biggest hope is I just really, really pray that somebody at the Department of Arts and Culture will think about creating an award for emerging writers and name it after Athol Fugard to set a bar for young people. And those funds are there, they are allocated to the department. I really hope that will be, think it will be a great gesture because to have called him our own. It's just the most beautiful thing. And he really, as truly as the son of the soil, has gone all over the world and said about us, people are living there, and told stories about this country and from the time when we were going through madness and anarchy to a sense of hope, to a sense of giving up, to and we've gone from a South African dream to a South African delusion. We just need somebody to honor Fugard by creating this award and let young people who are studying everywhere and who are wanting to be writers to just have a guiding light and look up to it, and that guiding light is Athol Fugard.
Yeah, thank you so much for the time, James and Robo. Janice Honeyman, from your perspective, how do we continue to honor the legacy of this fallen giant?
I believe that we actually take his plays and we give them to young people. We set them in schools. We actually get young people to read those plays, to understand the background. You have to understand your future. You need to know where you've come from. And the more young people we can get to read those plays and understand our history, the more we will have a more peaceful and approachable connection between each other. And I believe that Athol did that with such brilliance and such understanding. And the more we can do that, the more we can get Fugard performed in every theatre and in every school, the more we will honor him. I believe he deserves that honor.
He certainly does. Janice Honeyman, director and playwright, we appreciate the time today and the reflections on the life and times and, of course, the continuous living legacy of Athol Fugard. As we remember on this show, The Full Circle with myself, Bridget Masinga, all that he is and continues to be to the world of theatre in the country.
Remembering Athol Fugard, South African playwriting and theatre legend Athol Fugard, born 11 June 1932, SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
It was all good just a week ago. Life was smooth. I was paying almost nothing for electricity tokens. All that changed when I was given a big fine for buying illegal electricity tokens from illegal vendors and my neighbor for tampering with his meter. Now, I might go to jail when all I had to do was register for free basic electricity at my local municipality since I'm unemployed. Ungathatha ama chance. Buy electricity legally. Report illegal electricity token sales in your area and meter tampering to Eskom on 0800 11 27 22.
In times like these, everyone is looking to save wherever they can. But you don't have to be a detective to know that with Outsurance, you could be saving big on your car insurance. Hear it from real Outsurance client Marius.
The great big saving that I've got, 765 Rand, 27% a month on my premium. It's so quick and easy to swap over. I am part of the Outsurance family.
It's a no-brainer. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. Saving on car insurance makes you feel like a winner. And the best part is, if Outsurance can't beat your car insurance premium, ask them for 500 Rand cash. And make that 1,500 Rand cash if you've been claim-free and with the same insurer for 3 years. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. With Outsurance, you always get something out. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
Get a true AI business partner from Vodacom Business when you get the Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra on a Red Business 1.7 gig contract for 1,599 Rand per month over 24 months. Enhance your deal. Add 349 Rand extra per month over 24 months and get the Samsung Galaxy Watch Ultra. Available in-store and online. T's and C's apply. Further together. Vodacom Business.
From the 10th until the 16th of March 2025, the South African National Biodiversity Institute is hosting its first National Gardens Week, and visitors can enjoy free entry to all national botanical and zoological gardens across South Africa, including Kirstenbosch National Botanical Gardens and, of course, the Pretoria Zoo. Now, this year's theme is Grow Your Own Joy, and visitors are invited to embrace nature, wellness, and community by taking a peaceful walk, joining a guided tour, or perhaps learning about conservation in some of the country's most breathtaking green spaces. Nature has never been this open to all. So come celebrate, protect, and enjoy biodiversity wealth. Visit www.sanb.org for more details.
Arts, culture, and robust conversations with Bridget Masinga.
All right, well, we're still on the creativity, getting into some stages, pages, screens, and more now with Bobo. Is it Bobo or Bobo? Showcasing at the Joburg Film Festival. Morris Muendo joins us now, who's a Kenyan film director and MTF alumni. How are you doing this afternoon, Morris?
I'm fine. What about you?
I'm good, thank you. So which one of the Bobos is it?
It is Bobo.
It is Bobo.
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 Yes.
With a little Kenyan swag. Bobo.
Yeah.
So the 7th edition of the Joburg Film Festival is set to kick off this month from the 11th to the 6th of March. And of course, we know that the film festival transforms Johannesburg into a buzzing cinematic playground. And we thought we'd catch up with Morris around his work and, of course, just touching base as well in as far as the film industry in Kenya. Let's talk about this project, Bobo, which is showcasing at the Joburg Film Festival this year. Give us some background.
Of Bobo?
Yes.
Bobo is deeply personal, and it's a personal story for me. I've been growing up in Misili, and I saw firsthand of how girls are often trapped by societal expectation, like lack of opportunities. So for me, Bobo is reflecting of that reality and the journey, and the resilience of hope and the fight against general struggles. The film also explored the themes of love, poverty,
All right. And of course, as you say, this is a personal story, and it tells of dreams that are dashed, with themes of love, of resilience, of poverty. And these are really themes, I think, Morris, that whether you come from Kenya or whether you come from South Africa, or, whichever corner of the continent one might reside. These are themes that a lot of audiences, a lot of Africans can resonate with when we talk resilience, when we talk love, when we talk the struggle to try and realize your dreams and to some degree even to better position your family in society.
Yeah.
Why is it so important for you to tell these kinds of stories?
Because I relate to them. Yeah, it's just quite a story. I've been dreaming of becoming a filmmaker, but if it was not for MTF, I don't think if I could get that chance to be a filmmaker. No. So that's why I'm saying it is kind of personal to me. Yes.
What is the industry like in Kenya for young filmmakers and young storytellers?
It's quite fascinating. It is growing well. Our films are being received well, but quite few challenges in and there. So,
What kind of challenges?
Yeah. One is being financial, especially for the most young emerging filmmaker. It's quite hard to be trusted with the amount to do film. So you have to come as one, maybe contribute 1, 2, and then we do certain film. Yes.
All right. And talk to me a little bit also about being a part of the 7th annual Joburg Film Festival, because this is a festival that converges filmmakers from all over the continent and the diaspora.
Sorry?
Let's talk about being a part of the Joburg Film Festival for you this year. What does it mean for your project to be a part of this lineup, considering that we tell stories from not just South Africa, but from the continent and the diaspora?
Oh, quite first, I'm really honored for the opportunity, because Bobo it will not just be seen in Kenya, it will be seen like worldwide for African in the whole continent. So for me, it's an honor and very thrilling event to see Joburg Film Festival giving an opportunity for an emerging filmmaker like me, for my vision to be seen and for my vision to come out and my dream to come out clearly. So it's just like fascinating to me. It's quite a moment for me. Yeah.
Well, listen, we wish you the very best with the screening, Morris Muendo. And, of course, Bobo is premiering on Friday, the 14th of March at The Forge. Yeah. So if you're going to be a part of the Joburg Film Festival, you're planning on going to take part in some of the films that are being showcased, my apologies, that is where you can see the premiere of Bobo. That was Morris Muendo coming through, Kenyan film director and MTF alumni.
This is a story of Vodacom's impact.
Having the psychosocial support team has benefited us a lot. You're now able to refer to a specialist. We can accredit that to Vodacom.
This is why we do it. We've deployed psychosocial professionals specializing in GBV and bullying across 30 schools of excellence and ECD centers, helping over 30,000 learners. That's why we're the #1 CSI contributor for 8 years running. See more at now.vodacom.coza. Further together, Vodacom.
On the 1st of July 2022, the President of the Republic of South Africa signed the National Forest Amendment Act 2022, Act number 1 of 2022, the Amendment Act into law. The President has now proclaimed the Amendment Act and determined its commencement date as the 4th of December 2024. The Minister has also published amendment regulations which seeks to give effect to certain sections of the Amendment Act. A copy of the proclamation notice and the amendment regulations can be accessed on the following websites: www.dffe.gov.za/legislation/gazetted notices or www.gpwonline.gov.za. Any communication or media inquiries in connection with the publication can be directed to Mr. Peter Mbelengwa, Chief Director of Communication and Advocacy. The telephone number is 012-399-8842 or the cell phone number 082-611-8197 or email pmbelengwa@dffe.gov.za.
Equality, human dignity, freedom of movement and residence. Life, everyone has the right to life. Human Rights Month on SAFM. Arts, culture, and robust conversations with Bridget Masinga.
All right, we are catching up with Tsepo Manche now, who's the Rights to ECD coordinator, ahead of that anticipated budget speech, which is happening tomorrow. And Real Reform for Early Childhood Development is strongly supporting the proposed funding increases for ECD, which would greatly benefit South Africa's youngest children. How are you doing, Tsepo?
I'm doing great. Lovely to be speaking to you again, Bridget. How are you?
I'm fabulous. Thank you very much. I wonder, are you outdoors?
I am outdoors currently.
Oh, okay. Let's see how best we can do with the conversation. Let's talk about the sort of urgency to ensure that there is continued and perhaps even increased funding for ECDs in the country, and what that would really mean for, stakeholders and custodians within the ECD sector.
Yes, Bridget, this would be historic for early childhood development. You will remember that a few years ago, the Department of Basic Education took over function of early childhood development. And with that, they have put together the 2030 ECD strategy, which envisions universal access to early childhood development by 2030. However, with the current funding that we have, we are already off track and missing that deadline. We know that one of the key things that the Department of Basic Education has been trying to do is to ensure that we have all centers in the ECD sector registered by 2030. But with the recurrent issues in funding, practitioners are unable to sort of meet the health and safety standards that's required. Support with infrastructure is not there. And more dire is this 17 Rand per child per day subsidy that has been stuck at that amount since 2019. So with all of those, we are seeing that we won't be able to reach the 2030 goal of universal access, ensuring that access is not just access, but it's quality, inclusive, and also ensuring that the poorest children are getting the access to ECD. So this is why this moment is so important, to ensure that should we get that funding as it should be, it will put us back on track towards that goal.
Yeah, and this comes after many years of sort of minor and incremental funding increases. And this proposal makes for the first time an unprecedented 10 billion allocation to ECD subsidies.
Yes, and we were very excited. You can only imagine the sort of rumble that came across the sector when we got wind of that now withdrawn budget. So there was an initial budget that was meant to be given by the minister on the 19th of February. And in that budget, we saw that there was going to be a 10 million increase that was going to go precisely to the subsidy that I was referring to earlier, which would have seen an increase of the ECD subsidy from 17 Rand per child per day to 24 Rand per child per day. And that would have meant that the value that money lost due to inflation over the years would have been restored to its buying power that it was in 2017. Another thing that we saw in that subsidy would have been a 210 million Rand towards ECD infrastructure. This would have been great gains in terms of ensuring that ECDs are able to register. And then we were also seeing an increase from the 197 million allocated in 2024 to 336 million specifically for nutrition, which is also one of the biggest challenges we're facing in ECD, given that 1 in 4 young children in South Africa are stunted. So we were very excited to see this budget being sort of what it was going to be. But now we are sitting with bated breath on the edge of our seat, waiting to see what changes will come tomorrow. Because should any of this go down, it will threaten that road to 2030 universal access, which was set by the DBE themselves.
Yeah, and I think perhaps, that's where a lot of anxiety, as you say, a lot of people are sitting on tenterhooks right now, Tsepo, because the conversation has been greatly centered around the VAT proposal increase, which in part also speaks to the necessary funding for ECD, right? And so it's going to be a rough 24 hours as, stakeholders such as yourselves try to figure out whether or not there will be the necessary allocated money for you to be able to meet the goals that you need, or what other contingencies must be put in place should the budget need to be scaled down and certain things considered.
Yeah, it feels like we are faced with a cliffhanger as we wait for the 12th of March tomorrow. However, what we do want to stress is that the state should not sort of give an either or to anybody to say that we either get the VAT increase or we don't get the budget at all. What we want to put forward is that there are many other ways that government can increase their revenue and not through the VAT. There are other ways of increasing this through other types of taxes, through ensuring that actual current processes are implemented in the way that people are not evading tax, and other more progressive measures that many colleagues in the sector have explored. Additionally, it's not to say that we want to pin one socioeconomic right against another, because as people in the early childhood development, we understand the holistic nature of early childhood development and all the other socioeconomic issues that need to be fixed to support early childhood development. However, the case that we want to make more clearly is that investment in ECD, research has shown that it provides 13% return. One rand invested in early childhood development has 13% return on it. This is through young children being retained in school, not dropping out of school. This is around when they get older, there is less dependency on social support from the government and many other outcomes that come from early childhood development. So seeing early childhood development not just as the outcomes of the child currently, but the outcomes of society. Another key thing that would investment in early childhood development would address is around inequality in employment. We know that the sector is largely led by black women. So if this sector is more formalized and employment and the workforce of early childhood development is recognized, it means bringing millions of women into employment. In addition to the practitioners who would be brought into employment, it would mean that the mothers and the caregivers who are often left to care for the children can be rest assured that the young children are being supported at an ECD center, and they themselves can join the economic world. So there are so many outcomes, particularly from an economic point of view, that ECD would address.
And I wish we had more time to continue exploring this conversation, Tsepo, but let's hope that should tomorrow's budget come, hopefully it gets delivered tomorrow, that, the ECD gets the much-deserved attention that it needs, because there definitely is a very strong case for why this type of funding is needed for early childhood development. That was Tsepo with the Right to ECD, and he is the coordinator there. It's about a minute to go before the top of the hour, and coming up on the other side of 2 o'clock, because it's Tuesday, we have a health and wellness focus after 2 on the show, and we're going to be talking, and pardon me if my pronunciation of this particular cancer grouping is not correct, but I think it should be. Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month. and we're raising awareness around colon cancer and, of course, the various screening methods. So we'll be having that conversation on the other side with a surgeon at the Wits Donald Gordon Medical Center. And, of course, they are renowned for their cancer department and, of course, the interventions that they've put in place. As per usual, on Tuesdays when we have medical professionals, we always say that the lines are open. If you'd like to put a case forward or ask a question, get a point of clarity, perhaps get further information on your personal journey, that line is open for you to use. You can send us a WhatsApp on 0614104107. That is our WhatsApp line. Or you can give us a call on 086 000 2032. My goodness, it's suddenly just went black outside our window. It seems like we are in the grips of a heavy storm in Johannesburg. So if you are on the road right now, please exercise caution and vigilance, because I literally cannot see what is going on outside my window. That is how much it is impaired from a visual perspective. 2 o'clock, Ondela is bringing you the news.
Thank you, Bridget. Top stories at 2. The number of Gauteng bus crash fatalities rises to 16, and Uganda sends special forces to South Sudan. For SAFM News, I am Ondelambana, and a very good day. The Road Traffic Management Corporation has confirmed that 16 people have now been declared dead following a bus crash on the R21 near the OR Tambo International Airport. 12 people were declared dead on the scene, whilst 4 people who were among the more than 40 who were injured succumbed to their injuries in hospital. RTMC spokesperson Saibon Zwane.
The number of fatalities has increased. We now know that there were 12 people who died on the scene, and 4 others have died in hospital, so we're sitting at 16. Other people have been transported to different hospitals around Ekurhuleni to Johannesburg. So the process of recovering the bus to further continue the investigation is now underway.
The EFF has warned that the implementation of e-voting is premature and detrimental to the electoral system. This comes as the Electoral Commission hosts a public conversation about the possibilities of electronic voting at an e-voting conference in Cape Town today. The EFF raised concerns regarding unequal access to digital technology and the lack of infrastructure, which is often compromised by power outages. The conference will conclude tomorrow. The families of anti-apartheid activists Matthews Mabelane and Nicholas Ramatua Boiki has expressed disappointment that no dates have been set for their inquest hearings. This comes after the Minister of Justice formally reopened the inquest into the deaths and disappearance of the 2 anti-apartheid activists. Kenny Mapanga reports.
The families, in a statement on Tuesday, say that while they welcome the formal reopening of the inquests, they are hoping for a swift resolution of both cases so that the families can find closure and healing. Tlapi was arrested in 1986, and shortly after his arrest, he disappeared. Mabelane, a member of the Soweto Students' Representative Council, allegedly fell to his death from the 10th floor of John Foster Square while in detention. Kani Mapanga, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Dehorning to deter rhino poachers is simply not enough. This comes as poachers are now targeting the stump that remains after a rhino is dehorned. That's according to Ezemvelo KZN and Wildlife. The Hluhluwe Mfolozi Park in northern KwaZulu-Natal remains the epicenter for the rhino poaching crisis in South Africa. The latest rhino poaching statistics for 2024 released by the Department of Environmental Affairs states that 232 rhinos were poached in KwaZulu-Natal last year. While this is a decline from 325 in 2023, the problem remains acute. The Hluhluwe Mfolozi Park's decision to hold off on dehorning saw it change tack in April due to the increasing number of poaching incidents, as Ezemvelo CEO Sihle Mkhize.
We wanted to try all the interventions before we embark onto that, because we always wanted the tourists to be able to come and see the rhino with its horn. When we realized that all the other interventions were not giving us the desired result, and also seeing that the alarming numbers of the rhinos being poached, that is when we decided that let us now embark on the dehorning program.
Uganda has deployed special forces to South Sudan's capital, Juba, amid rising tensions between President Salva Kiir and his deputy Riek Machar. The head of Uganda's army confirmed the deployment as fears grow over a possible return to civil war. Recent violence has raised concerns about the stability of a 2018 peace deal. The BBC's Richard Kahoe has more.
Uganda's military chief, General Muhoozi Kainerugaba, has not provided details on the deployment, but warned that any move against President Kiir will be seen as an act of war against his country. The rising tensions have sparked fears of a broader conflict that could worsen the humanitarian crisis in South Sudan and destabilize a region already dealing with violence in neighboring Congo. So far, South Sudanese authorities have not commented on the deployment. Uganda has previously sent troops to protect President Kiir, while neighboring Kenya has been pushing for dialogue between the two leaders to prevent further escalation.
Recapping the top story, the Road Traffic Management Corporation has confirmed that 16 people have now been declared dead following the bus crash on the R21 near the OR Tambo International Airport. I'm Mondela for SFM News Headlines at 2:30.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide.
Meet TJ, the magician. Well, he isn't quite the magician, but shame, let's call him that. The other day he tried to do that coin ear trick. Poor Owami is still in the hospital with a 5 rand coin stuck in his ear. He tried getting his pit bull, Mufasa, to levitate. Oh, he got that right. But now Mufasa is levitating through Tembisa, and somehow TJ forgot to read the section on how to get Mufasa back down. It's tough being a magician, but luckily for TJ, Britain's Got Talent Ultimate Magician will be the perfect inspiration for him to be the best magician in Tembisa. Catch Britain's Got Talent Ultimate Magician Saturdays at 7:30 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
Ngaphandle kwakho yewe nawe ingoma yewe ingoma yewe ingoma yewe ingoma wena ingoma wena Zikhathalelana ukuthi ubani uthini andinamsebenzi oh ngiyamthanda baby unjengengoma yena engishaya ubusuku bonke ngiyokwenza njani ngaphandle kwakho ingoma wena ingoma wena ingoma wena ingoma any time of the day, any day of the week, any day of the year. Oh, uyadlisa babe, uyingoma wena, shaya busuku bonke. Ngiyokwenza njani ngaphandle kwakho ingoma, yeah uyingoma, wena uyingoma, wena uyingoma, wena uyingoma, wena. A relentless song engandiniki buthongo. Ingoma endiyithandela nini na. Ngoma wena wangena kum. Wenza umzimba wami ikhaya lakho. Watsho kum ngaphakathi. Deep inside of me. Oh, ngoma ndini. Wandiphatha ndaguquka. Soze ndiphinde ndive into enjengalena. Oh, sithando sam, uyingoma, uyingoma wena, ngoma wena, uyingoma wena, ngoma wena, ingoma evela apha kum emzimbeni, ingoma emnandi, ingoma engathi kiyawo, ingoma engathi kiyawo, wena uyingoma, wena uyingoma, wena uyingoma, wena uyingoma, oh, ingoma engathi kiyawo, ingoma engathi kiyawo.
Konja, the president, Umongs, is doing a Q&A today in Cape Town. Should be interesting, actually, after he did his Joburg recce 2 days ago. I actually drove, I don't know if you've noticed, when I was driving into work today and yesterday, in fact, I saw the lights are permanently off. If you drive Johannesburg, if you're a resident of Johannesburg, I know obviously you're listening from every city in the country, but if you're a resident of Johannesburg, the main artery, Winima Digizela Drive, going all the way, cuts through the whole of Joburg, all the way up to Fourways. I mean, those robots don't work, have not worked in probably a year and a half. They work spontaneously. And it was interesting to see, you know, all the JRA construction vehicles yesterday and today putting up what is supposed to be the new robot infrastructure in those areas. So hopefully we'll see new improved infrastructure. We don't know. Let's see what happens. It's just gone 2:10, and that was Thandiso Mazwai coming through with Ingoma. We're going to be chatting now to Dr. Nomsa Nkosi, who's a senior consultant and colorectal surgeon at the Wits Donald Gordon Medical Center. And we're talking because it is Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month. It's observed in March, and it's a time to raise awareness about colon cancer and the screening methods. How are you doing this afternoon, Dr. Nomsa?
Good afternoon. How are you? Thank you for having me. Good afternoon, SFM listeners. I'm good, and you?
I'm fantastic. You know, anytime I have to use medical terminology because it's so very foreign to me, suddenly,
understandable.
You know, my brain and my mouth are just like, are we putting the right emphasis on the right syllable, and are we leaning correctly? Please do correct me with the proper pronunciation.
Yeah, it is colorectal surgery.
Oh, fabulous. And colorectal, this refers to both colon and rectum, right?
It's to both colon and rectum, but we also, it's just that it's not included in colorectal, also anus. It's inclusive, yes.
Oh, I would have thought, okay, clearly I missed out on 10th grade biology because I would have thought if we're talking rectum, we're also talking anal, but clearly it's not one and the same.
No, it's not one and the same, and the morphology is different.
Ah, I see. Okay. Let's talk about, I guess, perhaps let's start with just the prevalence of these kinds of cancers. I know we often talk around colon cancer quite a bit. Everyone always has conversations around colon cancer, but we don't really talk, the grouping of the three. How prevalent is the grouping of the three in South Africa, and is it broken down into different demographics and different gender?
So previously it used to be known as a disease of the elderly, and which is now different because we are now seeing more and more of the young ones younger than 50 of colorectal. Yes, we are seeing more of Caucasians with colon cancer and more of black with rectal cancer, but the difference is it's small. But it's no longer prevalent in the elderly, but it is on the high increase in the young patients, especially those that are younger than 50.
Especially those that are younger than 50. Dr. Nomsa, I want to try and see if perhaps we move you to WhatsApp, because it is such an important conversation just for the purpose of clarity. So let's take a quick pause as we try and move Dr. Nomsa to a different line on our WhatsApp line and see if we can get a better, crisper line there. We often struggle with just the clearness of our lines, and given network where I am and where my guests are, it can be a little bit tricky sometimes, which is why we always prefer in studio, but we've been unable to do in studio for a little bit now. But let's see how that works out for us. If you do have any questions for doctor that pertain to maybe treatment or that pertain to you getting clarity on some information, feel free to send us a WhatsApp voice note on 0614104107. We've got Dr. Nomsa back on the line. Apologies for that, Doc. It happens when we are all dealing with technology from all our different ends. Let's pick up...
And there's a lightning. Yes, and another thing I must say that it may differ in gender, but with females and males, I mean, there's 40% high incident rate, but I didn't want to place the numbers because they won't make any difference into our listeners.
Okay.
But with males, they tend to present late. At a late stage and in advanced disease. But I'm sure it's because, males, they don't want to seek medical health earlier than compared to females.
Absolutely. That would make perfect sense to me. In fact, that would make perfect sense to me. What I was also interested in is the two cancers that are predominant in Caucasian and predominant in black populations. Are there any social, social factors that come into play here, or genetic factors that come into play here for explaining why colon cancer would be more prevalent in Caucasian males, or why anal cancer would be more prevalent in blacks?
Rectal.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. Rectal, yeah.
Rectal.
Okay, so that brings us to the risk factors. Yes, we have familial tendencies and genetic tendencies, but all in all, we do get sporadic cancers, and the risk factors, one can say they are actually multifactorial. They depend on the environment that one is exposed to. It may be familial, it may be genetic, it may be because that particular individual has an IBD or some benign conditions of the colon that may predispose them to colon and rectal cancers.
Ah, I see. Okay, so apologies for that. It was erectile cancers. So it's a basket, really. It's a basket of risk factors that could be
risk factors. Yes, and when we talk about environmental, I must say that diet comes into play.
Mm-hmm.
It comes into play, especially diet that is low in fiber.
Okay.
And red meat. Red meat has been implicated in so many aspects as one of the carcinogenic because it does three things basically. It is high in iron, and the iron in the meat, it may result in free radicals that may cause chronic mucosal damage or promote carcinogenics.
I see. Okay. So, I mean, without, I know what I'm about to say, the red meat industry is going to take me to the BCCSA. But, I'm saying it just from a good place. It almost seems when we have medical conversations or health and wellness conversations, a lot of the time, the emphasis when we're looking at diet is, please, can we be conscious of our red meat consumption as a society? It tastes good, it's good until we overdo it as folks.
Of course. And I know that we tend to adopt the maybe, which is the cause also of the high incidence that you are seeing, is the adoption of the Western diet in terms of braise, open flame ovens, cooking of this red meat. That also results into these high incidents in our society.
Yeah. Let's take a quick pause, Dr. Nomsen, then we'll come back and continue our conversation. Our lines are open on WhatsApp 0614104107 if you want to send us a WhatsApp voice note or WhatsApp message with something that you need a little bit of clarity on.
Copperbelt ladies and Durban ladies both want to collect maximum points in the early days of the season. Who will dominate this 90 minutes? Limpopo or KZN? This is the Hollywood Best Super League. Catch Mzansi Queens of the beautiful game. Copperbelt ladies versus Durban ladies on Saturday 15 March at 11:30 a.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
You are listening to The Full Circle.
We're in conversation with Dr. Nomsa Nkosi, who's a senior consultant and colorectal surgeon at the Wits Donald Gordon Medical Center. And Doc, a lot of the messages I've received thus far is folks wanting to know the importance of screening for these cancers and, of course, what are those screening methods? I think males always want to know, especially once we start talking about, these areas, colon, rectum. Males want to know what are the screening methods used here?
Oh, okay. So the screening methods we don't have a screening protocol in South Africa. Most of the screenings, they are in US and in European countries. In South Africa, we don't have screening protocols or centers or programs anyway, whether it's either in Joburg or in Cape Town, we don't have them. But that being said, if patients come with symptomatic symptoms that we know that they may pose a risk on patients, we do screen them. So it's either you send the stool to the lab or we do colonoscopies in these patients. Those are the two screening programs that can be used or that we use, though there are no stipulated programs that you go to this center, you just book for screening. But in private, we do give a screening.
Okay, so I want to make sure I understand you correct. So when you say that there's no screening protocols, what does that speak to? What does that mean?
So it means that from the age of 45, in US or in Europe, from the age of 45, you need to get a screening colonoscopy. In South Africa, we don't have that. So it is only when you have symptoms that you can request the screening.
I see. Okay.
So when you start to when you go to the toilet, when you start to see blood and the age is allowing, then we can say, okay, this patient we can screen.
Interesting. Then I would want to know, because I mean, obviously I'm a female. I have a female experience. As a female, we have, and I don't know if this would be screening protocols or just recommendations, but as a female,
for cervix.
Yes, for cervix. We screen at particular stages. Breast cancer. The messaging is you must screen at once you get to a certain age. How come with colon rectum, colorectal cancers, there's no such messaging?
There is no such because in South Africa we have few colorectal surgeons and we don't have enough centers that can offer colonoscopies in a safe way. Colonoscopies carries significant complications, so it has to be done in the good hands or in the experienced hands.
Oh, okay. I see. So once again, our lack of is inhibiting
resources.
Yes, lack of resources inhibiting our ability to provide preemptive healthcare. Okay, very interesting. Now, when it comes to symptoms, what would symptoms be, and are the symptoms the same for the grouping, colon, rectum? Is it the same kind of symptoms we're looking out for?
Not really, but they may be related because the symptoms that we always ask people to look for. Once you get those symptoms, just go to the nearest healthcare center or healthcare provider. If you have change in bowel habit, what do I mean by that? It's when you are going to the toilet normally. And maybe every third day, every second day, and suddenly you get constipation. And with this constipation, when you open up, it comes back as diarrhea. Okay. That is a change in bowel habit. Okay. Or if that comes with abdominal discomfort, and also that one, it usually is the only symptom that people wait for to seek medical help. It's when they pass blood, from behind. But sometimes it may be late, You don't have to wait until you pass blood. I mean, sometimes you may feel like when you go to the toilet, you feel like you have not emptied completely. You go to the toilet and then you are done and suddenly you must go back again. That is the feeling of incomplete evacuation. It's one of the signs because that would mean that there may be something that has grown in the rectum and it's occupying the space in the rectum.
Okay. And whilst we're here, I got a message speaking to exactly that on WhatsApp. One of our listeners wanted to know if they are experiencing severe constipation, if that could lead to colon cancer.
So if it's severe constipation, no, it does not lead to colon cancer, but it needs to be screened because we need to make sure that is the constipation due to slow transit or there's a mechanical obstruction in that colon. So that colon needs to be screened before we can say, no, you have a slow transit colon.
Okay. And when we're talking here, constipation, lack of bowel movement, we're not talking about because today you haven't gone to the loo and tomorrow you haven't gone to the loo.
That's why I was saying if you go to the toilet normally every third day, every second day, because some people, they want to go to the toilet every day.
Yes.
You don't have to go every day to the toilet. You can skip 2 days, 3 days. It's still normal, You don't have to go to the toilet every day.
Okay. And then I know that, the interesting thing about when we talk some of these symptoms at times, because they can be in isolation, it can just be normal things that are happening, right? Because in isolation, for instance, if you have a discomfort in your belly or some kind of cramp, gas, pain, in isolation can be something that can be overlooked. Because it can seem like, it's just maybe I'm just gassy today or I'm just crampy today. But when you tack it on with other symptoms...
Yes. Usually it comes with either unexplained loss of weight, nausea, vomiting and bloating. But vomiting comes very late, but nausea may be there. But most of the time it's an unexplained loss of weight that you are seeing that my clothes are now getting loose and I'm not in diet or I'm not in a program of losing weight.
Okay. No, I mean, makes perfect sense to me. Other sort of comorbidities, things like diabetes and obesity, does this come into play as well?
Obesity does come into play. It does come into play because when we have obesity, there are disturbances in the insulin and the receptors, and those they have been noted as risk factors. Obesity, it is a risk factor. It's a known risk factor. But I don't want usually to put obesity as the thing, because now another person will say, I know somebody who was not fat who had colorectal cancer.
Yes.
But it is a known risk factor.
Okay. As we wrap it up, Doc,
and also smoking is also a risk factor.
Yeah.
In fact, smoking, I must say, we all know that tobacco is a known carcinogenic, so it may result into many other cancers. So if you are smoking, then you are also carrying a high risk. And also alcohol also alters the absorption of some of the vitamins like folate, which result into disruption of the DNA synthesis of the cells. That may also result into cancer.
Okay.
And also, if you were radiated if you had radiation before, you're also at risk. So, because some patients, they are radiated for cervical cancer, prostate cancer, they are at risk of getting rectal cancer.
Yeah. Dr. Nomsa, unfortunately, we've run out of time and we can't get into the preventative part of colon cancer. But thank you so much for your guidance and for your expertise. And that listener who was saying about their severe constipation says, just quickly, I can skip a month not going to the loo and don't even feel bloated. Would you, in just yes or no?
That's constipation. It needs to be investigated.
There we go. That was Dr. Nomsa Nkosi, Senior Consultant and Colorectal Surgeon at the Wits Donald Gordon Medical Center. So you heard the doctor. Go to the doctor right now. 2:30 on Delambana standing by.
Thank you, Bridget. In the news headlines, the Road Traffic Management Corporation has confirmed that 16 people have now been declared dead following a bus crash on the R21 near the OR Tambo International Airport. Johannesburg Water has disconnected about 15 customers living in gated complexes for collectively owing the water entity over 2.7 billion rand. And Ukraine has launched its biggest drone attack on Moscow and its surroundings area overnight. This as talks begin in Saudi Arabia between Ukrainian and U.S. officials on Washington's efforts to engineer a ceasefire. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
You are listening to The Full Circle. This program is brought to you by SABC Education. Enriching minds, enriching lives.
Hi guys! Something that gets me in trouble most of the time is not doing my homework, and sometimes it's just because I'm on my phone for too long. And that's also another thing that gets me in trouble. And when I get in trouble, the person I'm most scared of is my mom. But both of my parents are very, very scary. I'm scared of my parents when I get in trouble because they're very strict and I don't want to get in trouble and I do not want to do things that will upset them. Something I always do after doing something wrong or even just getting in trouble is I apologize, because apologies are very, very important, and also being respectful about your apologies is very important. And I always watch my tone and how I speak to people, because you never know how someone else might be viewing or perceiving the situation. When you get in trouble, it's important to apologize and not hide away from the situation. And it's important to realize that you've done something wrong and confess to what you've done wrong.
The things that I get in trouble for most of the time at home or at school is, at home, I don't really clean my room as much as I'm supposed to. And at school, I don't really get in trouble because I'm someone who keeps to myself, so I don't really get into that much trouble at school. When I do get in trouble, and the person that I'm most afraid of is my mom, because I know that she will yell at me and like try to correct me in certain places, because I know how strict she is and how she can come at certain things. I wouldn't say I'm necessarily scared of my mom, but I would say that I just know when to not cross the line and when to cross the line and do something that I'm told to do. The first thing I do after I get in trouble with my mom is try to correct the things that I did wrong so that I know next time I won't do the same thing again and that everything is better than it was before. Thank you.
My name is Dembere Madem. What mostly gets me in trouble at home is running up and down from one door to another. At school is actually nothing. I'm mostly scared of my mom when I realize that I've done something to get in trouble. I'm scared of that person because sometimes she's scary. When I get in trouble at home or at school, first thing I say is sorry.
Greetings to you all. My name is Lorraine Moyo. I get in trouble at school for talking in class a lot. I usually talk to my friend who sits next to me in maths. At home, I get in trouble for not doing my chores properly. For example, I get in trouble for not washing the dishes properly. At school, who I am mostly scared of when I do something wrong is my teacher, because he can say stand at the staff room if you talk, which is a reasonable punishment. At home, who I am most scared of is my mom, because she can tell me to go do the dishes again, or she will tell me to go do something again, because I would have not done that something properly. When I get in trouble at school and at home, I apologize to whoever I need to apologize to. Thank you for listening to me. Bye.
Good day, everyone. My name is Amunga Zomayana. Today I'm going to be talking about what mostly gets me in trouble. Well, what mostly gets me in trouble is the fact that I don't listen and tend to forget things. Like homework, cleaning my room, forgetting my books, and others. One person that I'm scared of when I get in trouble is my dad, because I know he's going to shout at me, which I find scary. The first thing I do when I get in trouble is to say sorry for what I did, even though sorry does not fix the problem. Thank you for listening. Bye for now. I hope you learned something new about me.
Good afternoon. My name and surname is Pego Shempembe. Things that get me into trouble at home are not doing the chores like cleaning my room or not doing the dishes. Playing with my little brother sometimes always gets me into trouble. When we play silly games and he cries sometimes and reports me to my mom. At school, I get into trouble if I don't finish my work in time. Our teacher does not like that. I am mostly scared of getting into trouble with my dad because he shouts loud. When I get into trouble at home or at school, I am taught to apologize for my mistake. It's always scary being in trouble. Thanks.
Hello friends and happy Tuesday. Today let's talk about something that happens to everyone at some point. Getting in trouble. Have you ever done something at home or school that got you in trouble? Maybe you forgot to do your homework, didn't listen to your parents, or broke a rule by accident. It happens to all of us. When you do get in trouble, who are you most scared of? Your teacher, your parents, or maybe an older sibling? Sometimes we feel nervous because we don't want to disappoint them or face the consequences. But the most important thing to do when you realize you've done something wrong is to be honest and take responsibility for your actions. Saying I'm sorry and trying to fix the mistake can make a big difference. The best way to stay out of trouble is to follow the rules, listen to your parents and teachers, and always think before you act. But if you ever do find yourself in trouble, don't panic. Stay calm, tell the truth, and learn from your mistakes so you don't repeat them. Everyone makes mistakes, but what really matters is how you handle them and what you learn from them. So always try your best to make good choices. And when you do mess up, use it as a chance to grow and be better next time. That's all for today, friends. Stay kind, stay honest, and keep making good choices. See you next time.
This program was brought to you by SABC Education. Enriching minds, enriching lives.
Dr. Malava, you are a genius, man. Dr. Malava speaking. How can I soothe your heart today?
Hey, Doc. My Bezo says I'm not romantic enough, and with Valentine's Day coming up, I want to brush up on my romantic talk.
Ah, Uncle Mo, I've got you covered. Or better yet, I'll have you improve on your game and have you all set.
Oh, Doc, what are you saying now?
Grab a tennis racket, a bottle of water, and some fresh green fluffy tennis balls, Malume.
Tennis racket, tennis balls. How is that supposed to help?
In the arena, Serena Williams will have you saying 15 love, 30 love, 40 love. It's love everywhere, Malume. Catch In the Arena. Serena Williams, Sundays at 7 p.m. Starts 9 February, only on S3.
This Human Rights Month, SAFM is deepening a culture of social justice and human rights. It's a time to reflect, engage, and take action for a more just society. From thought-provoking discussions to powerful stories, SAFM is leading the conversations that move us. Because your voice matters, your rights matter, and together we shape a better future. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. Ashraf Gada on SAFM.
Explain what do you mean and why you felt the need to say just that.
I've realized over the last few days that Afrikaner voices have been silent. I think I know why, and maybe we can get to that. But the reality is we've allowed Solidarity and AfriForum to speak for us. And I can't let them speak for me because I vehemently disagree with a lot of what they are saying. But because they're so vocal and very well connected into the media, people think that's how all Afrikaners think. And it absolutely isn't.
Dr. Louise van Rijn was a leadership development expert, social entrepreneur, and also the founder of Partners for Possibilities.
You're listening to the National Pulse. Missed it? Find the podcast at safm.co.za. Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
Our final conversation this afternoon is with Graham Hart, who's an addictions counsellor from Akiso Care Netcare. And we are going to be talking about the silent painkiller addiction, right? So there's been a transition from using painkillers for relief to becoming dependent on them, and that's becoming a growing issue that is going unnoticed. How are you doing this afternoon, Graham?
Hi, good afternoon, Bridget. Nice to speak with you. I'm doing good, thank you.
Thank you for the time. We appreciate it. So we know that a lot of us, we rely on painkiller meds. It doesn't even have to be after surgery or injury, or it can just be for headaches. There are people who take different grades of painkillers for headaches and just day-to-day pain management. But we never think about the fact, that this could lead to a real addiction problem.
Yes, it can do, especially if they're used over a sustained period of time. Often it is somebody who is recovering from a major operation, but it can also be somebody who has a predisposition to addiction, or perhaps have a recently diagnosed mental condition that they're on medication for the first time of that sort,
Let's talk about, just the sort of the prevalence of it, right? Because we're making reference to it as being a silent epidemic of painkiller addiction. Does this mean that we really aren't conscientized to the potential magnitude or the reality of the situation right now?
Well, yes, Bridget. It's with any substance that's releases dopamine or serotonin, such as opioids or benzodiazepines, there's always the risk. And the thing is, so often people aren't even aware that they're becoming addicted. If I might just give you a brief example of a family member of mine who went in for tonsillectomy and in their 30s, so it was a major operation. They came out and they were put on medication, and they just gradually started requesting it more and more. Fortunately, their partner at the time picked up a pattern and took the medication to the local GP, who then said, no, she must make sure that she weans him off it. And this person had no previous addiction issues. So that, fortunately, the partner acted timeously, but that's an example of how somebody who you may not expect it can become addicted to something like that.
The other concern, right, is because these kinds of drugs, we're talking about drugs here that are legal and that are widely acceptable. So it might not even be seen socially, like you said. It could be missed, right? Because, hey, I got a prescription from a doctor and I'm in pain, obviously. That's obvious. So what must I do?
Absolutely right. Especially as I think typically in the late 1980s, but even now still, codeine-based medications you can buy over the counter. And while some of them are fine, codeine can be highly addictive to people that are sensitive to it. And I'm sure a lot of people have seen the program on Netflix on OxyContin and how that enslaved a lot of people. Sometimes the medications are primarily meant to give benefit, but they can end up enslaving somebody to some form of addiction.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of codeine, not just as recent as a few years ago, we saw with the urban hip-hop community, a lot of the superstar rap stars sort of made it an acceptable lifestyle. They called it scissup.
Yes.
For the young kids to start scissupping. And it took a lot. I think it took a lot to sort of break that kind of cool attachment for the youth, because it almost really became quite the global problem.
Yes, of course. There is that culture attached to it, and that is also a problem. It's because, as you said earlier, because you can obtain them legally over the counter, it's not seen as an issue. But, once you start seeing people buying from different pharmacies and trying to get different prescriptions, then you can see a problem developing.
Yeah. Graham, when you talk about that, and my memory is just scrambling to recall where I heard a similar concern being vocalized by the pharma industry recently, saying that there needs to be a more centered, connected system with pharmacists in the country. The ability for Bridget to take her script, fulfill it in Morningside, reprint it, go fulfill it in Bryanston, reprint it, go fulfill it elsewhere, could lead to problems. And one of the problems is exactly what we're speaking about, unchecked addictions.
Yes, absolutely right. Normally, pharmacies will look and see if you have taken, you can't take the same script somewhere else, but of course, if you do get different scripts from different practitioners, that makes it harder for them to trace,
I mean, yeah. And, we should not be able to take the same script, but I know that even I'm guilty of taking the same script. When a pharmacist says, can I keep the original? And because I travel so much, I'll often go, no, can I have it? So I can go fulfill it. Should I be somewhere else and need to fulfill the script within time? And if the pharmacists don't put that little sticker on it to track that you've actually taken this medication so the next one can see, it's just like you're walking out with a new script. And it's happened to me too many times, unless we're talking franchise pharmacies like a Discam or Clicks, or where they're
Yes,
then able to track
100%.
on the system. All right. What are the risks, or rather, before we even talk about that, what are the symptoms that people should be looking out for? Whether for themselves or even as family members, things that we should be looking out for that tell us that perhaps there could be an addiction problem here that's developing, or a codependence on this prescription medicine.
Well, it's sort of, you should look out for people who suffer with chronic pain, who do require medication on a regular basis, because of course there are people that do need it. They're obviously at risk. There's also the people who have struggled perhaps with other types of addiction before. And then also you've got people with unmanaged stress or health condition, mental health conditions such as depression or anxiety, and who battle with sleep. There's also people who frequently use alcohol, perhaps in excess, or people who are going through some sort of trauma, a divorce or the passing of a loved one. They are susceptible to something like that.
And the sort of long-term effects on one's mental health, and obviously we also know that addiction or codependency also has a rippling effect on just your social relationships.
Yes, and that's where the prop issues come in. People tend to isolate. Obviously, their health takes a bad turn because they solely focused. The medication becomes more and more important to them, until eventually it replaces everything else in their priorities. So they will start to exhibit possibly irritability, depression, anxiety, mood swings, and also possibly loss of responsibility. Things like work can even be affected, sleeplessness. Long term, it has a serious effect on people's health.
What do we do, Graham? What do you do when one suspects a problem? Because not everyone, could be as agreeable as your family member who said, whoa, actually, maybe I didn't see that there was a problem, but now that you say there's a problem, I could have one. Not everyone is quite ready to accept that truth.
No, absolutely. I think the thing is, if you're still at home, you can do things like check for empty boxes lying around, dispose of any medication that's past its sell-by date. You can, I think, take them to places like Discim, and they'll dispose of them responsibly for you. Just check around to see if there's any other signs of addiction, such as alcohol or anything like that. And then obviously the person may require therapy if it has gone to that stage. There's a difference between a dependence and addiction. Someone may become dependent if they've got a long-term illness such as cancer, but if it's something that's more short-term, or else it's from one single operation, then the addiction will show, and to look for compulsive and obsessive behavior, because often people will cross-addict from one thing to another. So if the medication isn't there, are they cross-addicting to something like watching TV or food or anything like that? So it's looking for behavior changes in somebody that you know well, and seeing how that different that is. And again, the mood swings, and also their lack of self-care and stuff like that. And then, to try and go to your local GP, or else to seek some therapy.
Yeah. Is there responsibility on doctors as well, just to ensure, or to try at least, and ensure that whatever scripts and medications that are given to their patients are adhered to for that time frame, and then you must double back, for the doctor to reconsult to see where you at before they write another script or increase a dose. And I know for the majority, this is not even shedding bad light on doctors. For the majority, most doctors are ethical and upstanding and do all the right protocols. But, human error does happen from time to time here and there.
Yes, of course. And the medical practitioners, obviously, people can lie to them, to put it bluntly, and mask things. So the doctors will give them a limited prescription. But if the person has become obsessed about their medication, they won't represent the truth to the doctor, and it's not always easy for them to pick it up. So that's why it's also somebody who cares is to maybe even check in with the doctor themselves and see what the patient has represented to them. The doctor will only give a limited time period for the scripts that they issue, but that is where the family member might need to look into things like that.
Yeah, I must admit, I've had one or two miscarriages in my lifetime, and I had to have some evacs and had to be on pain meds, with the sleeping pills. They will literally prescribe 3 or 5 at maximum and say that is all you get, just to help you sleep through this week. And then we can move on to other methods of getting you over this period, and I hope and pray that everybody has that kind of medical professional, people who are really strict with you and they say, no, can't do it. Can't do it. I'm not prescribing that. We'll find another way. The other thing that also concerns me, Graham, is, and it happens in all our social circles, right? You'll be having some bad pain or whatever, and I'm always fascinated by people who know pain medication by name. And then they just share pain medication. I'm like, all I know is Panado.
Yes, that actually, you've highlighted something very important there, Bridget. It's the sharing of medication or taking advice from a friend is not a good idea, because everybody also, apart from the fact that they're not professionals, everybody can react differently to medication. So you can have a higher sensitivity than another person. So taking codeine as an example, some people can take codeine medication no problem, but for somebody else, they're highly sensitive to it, and they can become addicted quicker. And that's nothing bad about them. It's just how they are.
Yeah.
So the idea of taking what's worked for a friend is never a good idea. No, not at all. And also because, one thing I also wanted to mention is that one of the reasons why it's so important to get professional advice is because of the withdrawals. It's very dangerous coming off opioids or benzodiazepine, sort of cold turkey, as you call it. You can have things like seizures and stuff like that. It's something that needs to be tapered under professional guidance. It's not something that you should just do. So that is why you can't just take these things for granted.
Absolutely. Well, listen, I hope that our conversation today reached the ears of somebody. If there's somebody perhaps who's thinking that, this looks like it could be developing into a problem. I hope what Graham has shared today leads you to intervene or take some proactive measures to wean yourself off whatever painkiller you might be, especially if you don't need it anymore or there's other ways for you to manage your pain. Graham Hart, appreciate your time today. And Graham is an addictions counselor from the Akiso Care at Netcare. that is how we wrap it up. One of my technical producers was whispering in my ear during the conversation about expired medicine. Yes, Zelma, medicine expires, it's on the box. Medicine expires, it's on the box, and you should dispose of it in the most responsible way. Dischem disposes of medicine. A lot of pharmacies dispose of medicine. You just give it to them, and then they know exactly what to do with it. Or you can just flush it down your loo. Don't throw it in the bin. Flush it down the loo. That is what I do. Don't throw it in the bin because someone else could dig in your bin. Medicine, needles, don't throw them in your bins. A lot of the hospitals and clinics, you don't even have to walk very far. If you do have needles, you just they always have like a disposable thing there that you just throw it in, and then they dispose of it. That is how we wrap up the show this afternoon. Thank you so much for being in conversation with us. Let's see if I can beat the weather going home. The rain seems like it's not that bad anymore. Ashraf is standing by to take over for the rest of the afternoon. Inshallah, God willing, we get to do it again.
First touch ladies have a tough assignment to demonstrate the importance of a good first touch. Meanwhile, Tia's Galaxy Queens refuse to settle.
Bridget, top stories at 3. Update on the Gauteng fatal bus crash and Moscow hit by Ukrainian drone attack. For SAFM News, I am Onde Lambana, and a very good afternoon. Preliminary investigations show that the bus driver in the fatal bus crash on the R21 near OR Tambo International Airport swerved to avoid colliding with another vehicle before he lost control and overturned. The crash claimed the lives of 16 passengers and many others were left injured. The Road Traffic Management Corporation spokesperson Simon Zwane explains.
The bus was traveling on this route going towards Kempton Park, following another vehicle. That light motor vehicle was it missed its turn towards the OR Tambo Airport and applied brakes, and the bus driver also followed and applied brakes, and that resulted in this crash where now we have 16 people who have now died, but we are still going to investigate everything.
The EFF has warned that the implementation of e-voting is premature and detrimental to the electoral system. This comes as the Electoral Commission hosts a public conversation about the possibilities of electronic voting at an e-voting conference in Cape Town today. The EFF raised concerns regarding unequal access to digital technology and the lack of infrastructure, which is often compromised by power outages. The conference will conclude tomorrow. Johannesburg Water has disconnected about 15 customers living in gated complexes for collectively owing the water entity over 2.7 million rand. Some of the suburbs targeted include Glen Vista, Sunninghill and Barclay in Johannesburg. Joburg Water spokesperson Nombuso Shabalala says their teams have been experiencing challenges accessing gated communities and complexes where they are often denied entry into the properties.
The JMPD accompanied the Johannesburg Water team in this operation. The drive is part of the entity's efforts towards revenue collection, which is crucial for the main upgrading of the city of Johannesburg's water and sewer infrastructure.
The late Dr. Khumulevu Mukai has been laid to rest in Haranguwa, north of Pretoria. He has been described as a very intelligent man by those who were close to him. The renowned medical doctor, author and black consciousness intellectual was found murdered at his home last week. Speaking to SABC News in honor of Mukai, his girlfriend and former ZAPO president, Striker Tokwane, criticized government for not doing enough for anti-apartheid activists.
A country that does not remember its heroes, a country that does not remember its heroines, is a country that is doomed. The fact that we are where we are today, it's a significant point and signifying to the fact that our things may never get right, not now. What should be done is that we should sit back and particularly mobilize the young people so that they can be re-conscientized to be able to take over the cudgels of the struggle.
Ukraine has launched its biggest drone attack on Moscow and its surrounding area overnight. This as talks begin in Saudi Arabia between Ukrainian and U.S. officials on Washington's efforts to engineer a ceasefire. The Russian authorities say 2 people died and 18 others were wounded when drones and debris struck residential buildings and a car park. The BBC's Steve Rosenberg has the details.
As far as the Moscow region goes, the Russian military says that more than 90 drones were shot down there. The Moscow mayor says this was the biggest enemy drone attack on Moscow, but he said